All right, happy Tuesday, everyone. Today we're going to be making our final edits to our final draft before we turn it in. And we're going to be adding a works cited page to our document in order to help make sure that all of our sources are listed in order to give credit back to where we got our information. So right now I want you to have out your rough draft or whatever document you're working on right now for your final draft. And I want you to add an extra page to the end of your essay, and I want you to title it Works Cited. So I want you to go to your essay. Now this is just a blank document for me, but I want you to go to the end and add another page to it, and I want you to hit the middle cursor, and I want you to title it Works Cited. Now I want it to match the same font and size that the rest of your paper is in, so Times New Roman 12, and then you're going to underline it. And so the top of that last page should look something like this. If you want, you can bold it, but that's up to you. And then press the Enter button, and I want you to go back to the left-hand side, unbold and underline it, and leave it like that. And we're going to talk about this in just a moment. So returning back to our PowerPoint, today we're going to be talking about our evidence and how to make sure that everything is cited correctly. So let's get started. So let's just go over what needs to be done. So you've read your sources, you've done an outline, you've done a rough draft, you even read notes from me on what to improve on your essay. Now all that's left is your final draft. Now your essay is due tomorrow, so think about what do you need to do from now until tomorrow to get that paper turned in. So this is kind of your last day to polish up everything and make sure that it's ready to go. Remember, I'm not accepting late essays this time, so make sure that from now until tomorrow you have everything you need to get it done and turned in. Now, let's look at our example paragraphs from yesterday and see how our author has cited the sources and incorporated evidence into our paragraph. So if we look at this 4 paragraph, the ones that are arguing that climbers should have access to rescue services, these 2 pieces of evidence are cited in different ways, but both correct. If we look at this first piece of evidence, notice how in the lead-in, Nick Heel is introduced and the magazine is introduced. So according to Nick Heel, an editor of Outside Magazine, comma, quotation marks, then the quote, then some of our own words, then the page number. In this piece of evidence, we have the author's name and the page number both in that piece of evidence. So is it properly cited? Yes. And remember, if you have the author in the lead-in, you do not need to include his name in the parentheses. Now, if you do not introduce who the author is in the lead-in to the evidence like this, then you do need to include his last name in the parentheses just like this. So 2 ways that you can cite your information. Both are correct. It's just however you prefer to do it. Now make sure your quotes are not naked, which remember a naked quote is when you don't have a lead-in and you don't incorporate your own words before and after your quotes, just like this first example. So make sure that you are introducing the quote, and then sometimes it's helpful to have some extra words at the end. Now you don't always need to do the extra words at the end, but it is helpful. If we look at this against paragraph, notice how they also cited this in 2 different ways. We have quotes within their sentence. If it's not hard to believe that even experienced climbers have the safety net of a helicopter in the back of their minds, Heel 23 is telling us Heel said this on page 23. Where does that put the less experienced climbers? And the second piece of quote, according to Guy Moreau, climbers not only have to reach the summit safely, they also have to make their way back down, page 26. Again, this is showing us 2 different ways to cite. You can either put the last name and the number together in the parentheses, or you can keep them separate as long as you say who wrote it in the lead-in. Always make sure that you're following quo par punc, quotation marks, then parentheses, then punctuation. Notice how our commas and our periods are after the parentheses at the very end. Now, I want you to stop right now if you're watching this video, and I want you to email me at asmith@sheltonschools.org and tell me which celebrity is in this PowerPoint. Now, hint, hint, if you do not know who this is Taylor Swift. This is another one of Mrs. Smith's favorite artists. Yeah, really like her music. She's very talented. Also, she won Album of the Year, so way to go, Taylor. All right, let's get back to the good stuff and talk about quotations and evidence. All right, so let's look at this example paper from a prior student who wrote on this topic. Let's look at how they have evidence in this paragraph and how they cite it. So climbers who get in trouble often go up without the necessary skills. The problems that climbers face is that they often go up without proper mountaineering skills. No doubt, when climbers are attempting to scale these mountains, they are probably thinking that the rescue services will be available to them and not considering how unprepared they are. Furthermore, should climbers attempting these climbs, as unprepared as they are, be given help at the risk of others? In addition, there are some climbers who may not know enough about mountaineering and the hazards that high altitudes present. This is why climbers should be taking all precautionary measures, but instead climbers are thinking too much about how strong or physically fit they are instead of the risk they are taking in losing their own lives. Surprisingly, the lack of skill doesn't prevent climbers from climbing, even though rescuers are putting themselves at risk as well. Notice how she has two pieces of evidence in her paragraph following CERER. Her first piece of evidence is where she paraphrases from the source Why Everest. She says the problems that climbers face is that often they go up without proper mountaineering skills. She got this fact from the article Why Everest, but she says it in her own words. And remember, that is perfectly fine with evidence. You just need to say what source you got it from. Now, this person in the parentheses chose to put the article title in the parentheses. What should she have put there instead? She should have put the author's name and the page number. So that was one thing she got dinged on that she needed to improve. So she could have said, in Why Everest, it says that the problems that climbers face is that often they go up without proper mountaineering skills, by Guy Moreau on page whatever. And then in the second one, she makes that same mistake, but this time she does it with a quote. So she says, may not know enough about mountaineering and the hazards that high altitudes present. Now, she does a great job of following quo par punct, which means she has her quotation marks, then she has her parentheses, then her punctuation. But instead, she should have made sure she had the last name of the author here with the page number. So that is something that if the author is included, we need to make sure that we tell us who the author is. Now, sometimes we won't know who the author is. Then this would be fine. But we need to make sure that in this case, since we do know who the author is, that we are including that in our paragraph. So if you don't already have your essay out right now, I want you to get it out and I want you to look at the evidence and citations you have. I want you to look at your first body paragraph, so your second paragraph altogether, and how many pieces of evidence do you have in that paragraph? Do you have at least 2 pieces of evidence? And did you cite each piece of evidence with the correct source? So, for example, if you cited Siegel or Heel, did you put their names in that? If you cited Moreau from Why Everest, did you put his name in there? And then the third source didn't have an author, so did you put Seattle Times? These are the examples of the types of citations you should have. Now, those page numbers probably are not the same page numbers you have, but make sure that you do have a page number attached. And right now, I want you to highlight each piece of evidence you have in your paper in yellow, and then I want you to put the citation in blue. That way you can see visually if you have 2 pieces of evidence and 2 pieces of citations in each of your body paragraphs. So take a moment and do that now. Pause the video while you do that, and I'm going to continue on. So play the video when you're ready. All right, so right now we are going to work on a works cited page, what you did at the beginning of the period. So what's important about works cited is it kind of is a page that gives us all of our information about our sources. Now, this is a test run, so your works cited does not need to be perfect this time around because it's the first time you've ever done one. But you're going to follow this order when you're creating your works cited. You're going to, if you have the author's name, you're going to put it last name first, then first name. then the title of the source in quotation marks, then the title of where that source came from, and then the publisher, then publication date, then location, like the page numbers. Now, our sources are not going to have all of this. So that is A-okay. So we're just going to look at what do our sources offer us in information, and then we're going to put that into a works cited. So let's start with our first source. So our first source is helicopter rescues increasing on Everest. This was the radio interview. Now, we didn't necessarily have an author for this radio interview, but we did have two people. We had Robert Siegel and we had Nick Heel. Now, we're going to want to put the last names first. So we're going to do Heel first. Heel, Nick, and Siegel, and Robert. Okay, so those are both of the names. And then what do we need next? We need to put a period after their name, then the title of the source. So, period, quotation marks, helicopter rescues increasing on Everest. All right. After that, we need to see what's next. Okay, the title of the container. Now, the container is like, where did it come from? So it looks like we do not get where this radio interview takes place. So what we're going to put instead is we are going to put in italics after a period. We're going to put source number 1 from Google Classroom, okay? So that's how we know that this is our source number 1, period. And then we don't have all this information of when and where it took place. So that's all you need for source number 1. The names of the speakers, the title of the interview, and then the source number, okay? Now, when you're working with a works cited, you want to make sure it's double spaced. So you're going to go up to this line spacing button and you're going to hit double, and then you'll hit the enter button. And now we're going to start with our next source. So source 2, if we go back to Google Classroom, source 2 is Why Everest by Guy Moreau. So this one will start with Moreau. Make sure you spell their names right. So Moreau, comma, Guy. And then this is Why Everest. And then we'll see if we can figure out where this comes from. It looks like we don't have any more information about where it's from. So we're just going to put source number 2. And we're going to make sure it's in italics. All right. So that's all we need for that one. And then this third one, this third source, we're going to see who it's by. Now, this is the Seattle Times one, so we actually do not have an author for this. So this is great practice. So if we don't have an author, we actually skip this part and go straight to the title of the article. So it's going to be Ranger Killed During Rescue of Climbers on Mount Rainier. Then we're going to want to put the container, which is where it's from. So this would be the Seattle Times. And for our benefit, we're just going to put source number 3 afterwards, okay? And then this one actually has a date. So after this, we're going to say, let's see if we have any more information. No, we don't. Okay, so we're going to put the date, which is Thursday, June 21st, 2012. Okay, so after this, not italicized anymore, we're going to put June 21st, 2012. All right. So if we look at this, we want to make sure it's in alphabetical order. All right, by author name. Now, do we have an author for this third one? No. So that's going to go first. So I want you to cut, put a space and move it to the front. All right, so that's going to be your first source. Then heel will follow next because heel is next in the alphabet, then Moreau. So it's going to be source 3 first, then the first source, then the second source. And here's an interesting thing you need to learn about works cited. If it's more than one line, you want the second line to be indented. Whoever made up this rule, I have no idea, but it is a rule with works cited. How you're going to do this is you're going to highlight the entire thing. You're going to move this this chunk, I don't know what this is called, this blue chunk that's up here. You're going to move both of these items to the 0.5 mark. All right. Then you're going to move just the triangle, no, not just the triangle, just the line back to the starting point, back to 0. Okay. So then if there's a second line, it's indented while the first lines are staying the same. All right, that was a lot to take in. So I want yours at the end to look just like this. We did this together. But if there are some mistakes, that's okay because we're still working on how works cited should look. But this should be at the end of your paper, and I'll be checking to see if you've at least attempted a works cited page. All right, so if we go back to our PowerPoint, let's talk about some essays do's and don'ts that we want to make sure that our essay either has or does not have. So make sure you do write incomplete sentences. I want you to check that all of your sentences are starting with a capital letter. Do capitalize the names and titles in your essays. These are proper nouns, and so they need to be capitalized. This is a common mistake I see. So make sure that if there's a name or the title of something, make sure that it's capitalized. Make sure that your essay has an intro, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Make sure that one of those body paragraphs has a counterclaim. And do make sure you have a works cited page with in-text citations. Make sure that your paper is not grouped all together. I don't want to see one huge paragraph. There needs to be separate paragraphs that are indented. Don't leave your evidence naked. Give a lead-in and make sure that you're introducing your quotes. And then finally, don't use slang or non-standard English. We want to make sure that we're keeping a formal tone while we are writing. All right, well, this is your last day to edit your paper. So keep editing and revising for the final. Make sure if you haven't already checked if there's feedback that I left. Maybe I didn't leave you any feedback yesterday, but now you do have feedback today. Make sure you follow my advice on your paper since I am the one grading it. And then I am going to recommend that you have someone else read your essay, like a parent or a friend or a grandparent or a neighbor. I want you to get some feedback on how your paper sounds before you turn it in. The best way to learn what you need to improve on your paper is by having other people read it. So keep working on that paper to get it finalized for tomorrow. And remember, I will be gone tomorrow. I have some appointments that I need to take care of, and so I will be away from my email. So if you email me tomorrow, I probably will not get back to you in a timely manner. So make sure if you have any last questions that you get them in today so I can help you out. And then tomorrow you will be turning in your essay on Google Classroom. So work hard, get it done. And if you have any questions, please contact me. Thanks, guys.